There's a car sitting on a lot in California right now with about 40,000 miles on the clock. Clean paint, leather, big screen in the middle of the dash. Somebody signed for it new 5 years ago at just over $50,000, drove it 8,000 miles a year, kept it garaged, and did every service on time. Today that car is worth about 10 grand. Not 10 grand off. 10 grand total. And the salesman standing next to it is not in any hurry to walk you over there. Here's the part that shouldn't be true. It's a Toyota. Kelley Blue Book has named Toyota the best resale value brand 6 years running. Their own numbers put the average new Toyota at roughly half its original value after 5 years, which is about as good as it gets in this business. This one gave up somewhere around 80%. Nothing on it broke. No engine failure, no transmission, no rust, no accident. The car did exactly what it was designed to do, and the market decided it was worth about the same as a 9-year-old Corolla. I've spent a long time with my hands inside these things. I can tell you by feel which side of 2008 a 3.5-liter V6 came from, because Toyota changed one oil hose from rubber to steel and ruined a lot of engines finding out it mattered. So when I say the badge on the hood is not a warranty, I'm not being clever. I've seen what's underneath it, and underneath it there are good decisions and bad ones, sitting right next to each other, wearing the exact same emblem. So here's what you're getting from me today. The used Toyotas that are genuinely worth your money in the middle of 2026. The ones that will quietly take $3,000 or $4,000 off you and smile while they do it. And one engine that Toyota has now recalled 3 separate times for the same defect, plus what they are currently offering owners instead of the new engine they originally promised. Save your anger for that one. It's worth the wait. Let's start with the number that decides all of this. Forget the badge for a second. Forget the odometer too, because mileage is the laziest number in car buying. Here's the one I actually use, and I want you to carry it through everything that follows. Take the single most likely expensive repair on a given car. Not the worst thing imaginable. The thing that model actually does. The failure that shows up on the forums and in the service bulletins and in the bay at the shop. Then divide that number by what the car costs. That's the ratio. A $3,000 repair on a $28,000 truck is an annoyance. The same $3,000 on a $9,000 sedan is the whole car. Same repair, completely different decision. And it has nothing to do with reliability in the abstract. This matters more right now than it has in years, because the used market has gotten mean. Average used listing prices crossed $27,000 in June for the first time since the summer of 2023, up about 6% in a year. Cheap cars are the real shortage. Anything under $15,000 is moving off lots faster than the market average, because that's where everybody's been pushed. Import duties are baked into the parts you'll need. The average car on American roads is now pushing 13 years old, which means the margin for a bad decision is thinner than it used to be. So, the ratio. Watch it as we go. Best Buy number 1, and I'm going to spend real time here because it's the one I'd put my own money on. The 5.7-liter V8, the engine Toyota called the 3UR-FE in a Tundra or a Sequoia, from roughly 2014 up to 2021. Let me tell you what's actually in there, because the reason this engine outlives its owners isn't magic, and it isn't Japanese mysticism. It's boring, expensive engineering that nobody would sign off on today. The block is aluminum with iron liners cast in. You get the light block and the hardware surface, and you pay for the complexity of joining two metals that expand at different rates. The crankshaft sits in a ladder frame, which is a single rigid casting that ties all the main bearing caps together instead of bolting each one down on its own. Think of it as the difference between 5 separate fence posts and 5 posts welded to a steel rail. The whole bottom end moves as one piece, so the crank doesn't get flexed around by combustion loads. The cams are chain-driven, not belt-driven, so there's no ticking clock telling you to spend $1,500 at 100,000 miles. 401 pound-feet of torque. And it makes most of it low down where a truck actually lives. None of that is exotic. All of it is expensive. And that's the whole point. This engine was designed in an era when Toyota was trying to break into the American full-size truck market and decided the way to do it was to overbuild the thing until nobody could argue. Now the honest part, because I'm not here to sell you a truck. The 5.7 leaks oil. Specifically, it weeps from the camshaft towers, where the cam journals sit in the head, and that is a labor-intensive job. You're looking at somewhere between $1,200 and $3,500, depending on your shop and how much of the front of the engine has to come apart. Water pumps are a wear item, and they will go. On the earlier trucks, roughly 2007 through 2010, the secondary air injection system is a genuine landmine. The pumps and switching valves fail, the truck drops into limp mode, and the dealer, quote, runs into the thousands. Toyota extended coverage on that to 10 years or 150,000 miles, which was decent of them, and which has now expired on every single one of those trucks. So that safety net is gone. Run the ratio. A clean 2017 Tundra is real money right now. Trucks are the one category where prices are still climbing. A cam tower reseal is a fraction of that. It hurts, it doesn't end you. And on the other side, you have a truck with a documented shot at 250,000 miles. I see cars who look at hundreds of millions of vehicles to work out which ones survive, currently put the Sequoia at the top of the whole industry for the odds of reaching 250,000 miles, with the Tundra and the 4Runner not far behind against an industry average down around 5%. I'll be straight with you about those figures though. IC Cars changes their methodology between studies, and the same model can move 10 or 15 points year to year without anything physically changing about the car. I'm quoting their most recent set because it's the most recent, not because I think the exact number means anything. What survives across every version of that study is the ranking, and the ranking has been the same for a decade. Buy the newest one you can find. Skip anything with a service history that starts 3 years ago. Best Buy number 2. Any Toyota hybrid built on the current system, RAV4 Hybrid, Camry Hybrid, Highlander Hybrid, roughly 2019 onward. I know. A hybrid feels like more to go wrong. It's the opposite, and here's why. A conventional automatic transmission is a hydraulic machine full of clutch packs, bands, a torque converter, valve bodies, and solenoids, and every one of those is a wear item soaking in hot fluid. Toyota's hybrid transaxle doesn't have any of that. It's a planetary gear set, a ring gear, a sun gear, planet gears between them, with 2 electric motor generators. There are no clutches to burn, no belt to snap, no torque converter to shudder. The gears are always meshed. The computer varies the speed of one motor to change the ratio. It is mechanically closer to a differential than a gearbox. Then the engine gets to run on the Atkinson cycle at whatever speed suits it. The electric side covers the low-speed grunt work that kills starter motors and brake pads, And regenerative braking means the friction brakes on a lot of these cars are still on original pads at high mileage. The caveat you need. On 2019 through 21 RAV4 hybrids, there's the fuel tank business. The tank shape and venting meant a lot of owners couldn't get more than about 10 gallons into a 14.5-gallon tank, which quietly deleted a third of the advertised range. That went to a class action, and the settlement extended coverage on the related parts out to 15 years or 150,000 miles. So it's fixable, often at no cost, but you want to know whether it's been done before you buy. Ask for the paperwork. Hybrid batteries. Everybody asks. The traction battery is warranted 10 years or 150,000 miles on these. And in the field, they're outlasting that. When one does go, you are not automatically buying a new pack from the dealer. There's a whole industry rebuilding and reconditioning them now. Used hybrids are the hot segment of the market this year. Sales up about a third, average listing prices at record highs, so you will pay for this. It's still worth it. Best Buy number 3, and this one's quick. The Avalon, roughly 2013 through 2018. It's the same V6 and the same 6-speed as a Camry, in a bigger, quieter, better riding car that nobody under 60 wants to be seen in. That's the entire pitch. It's the highest ranked sedan in the longevity data, and it costs less than a Camry of the same year because it looks like something your uncle drives. If you don't care what your car says about you, this is free money. Best Buy number 4, the 5th generation 4Runner, 2010 through 2024, with a 4-liter V6 and the 5-speed automatic. Everything people mock about this truck is the reason to buy it. 5 forward gears in an era of 10. Port injection, which means no carbon caking the back of the intake valves. A body bolted to a frame. A transfer case with an actual mechanical low range. Hydraulic power steering on the earlier ones. There is not a single component in the driveline that exists because a marketing department wanted a number to go up. The honest caveats, and there are real ones. It drinks fuel like it's still 2005, and no amount of gentle driving fixes that. It's a heavy body-on-frame truck with a 4-liter and 5 ratios. The rear window regulator fails, and it's an irritating job. And the price is genuinely stupid. The used market worked out what these are years ago, and you will pay a premium that has nothing to do with what it cost to build. Run the ratio and you'll find the repairs are cheap and the purchase price is the problem, which is the exact inverse of everything else on this list. If you're still with me, thanks. That's the buy list. Now the other half, and this is where it gets interesting. Worst buy number 1, the twin-turbo 3.4-liter V6. The V35A in a 2022 through 2024 Tundra or Sequoia. Not the hybrid version, the plain one. I'm going to ask for a bit of patience through the mechanical bit, because you need it to understand what comes after. And what comes after is the whole reason I made this. Your crankshaft doesn't touch the engine block. It rides on thin curved shells called main bearings. And between the steel of the crank and the surface of the bearing, there is a film of pressurized oil, maybe 1/10 the thickness of a human hair. That film is the only thing standing between a smooth-running engine and metal grinding on metal several thousand times a minute. It's a beautiful bit of physics, and it is completely unforgiving. Put anything solid into that gap, and the film breaks down. When these engines were machined, metal debris was left behind inside them. It found its way to the number 1 main bearing, the one at the front of the crank. Under sustained load, towing, climbing, hauling, The debris embeds and the bearing fails. Knocking. Rough running. Engines that won't start. Engines that quit at highway speed with a trailer on the back. Toyota recalled these in May of 2024. Then again in November of 2025, after adding extra cleaning steps that turned out not to be enough. Then a third time in May of this year, for another 43,500 trucks built after the extra cleaning was already in place. Total across all three campaigns, something close to 270,000 vehicles. Here's a thing I can't tell you because nobody has explained it publicly. The filings describe what the debris does. They do not explain why 3 rounds of process changes at the same plant kept letting it through. That's not me implying anything sinister. I'd just rather tell you where the information stops than invent a reason that sounds good. What I will say is this. If you're looking at a 2022 to 24 Tundra or Sequoia this weekend, and I suspect somebody watching this is, run the VIN before you do anything else. Engines built from July 2024 onward got a redesigned number 1 bearing and sit outside the recall population. And hold that thought about the remedy. We'll get there. Worst buy number 2. The 3rd generation Prius, 2010 through 2015, unless you have paperwork. 2 problems that are probably 1 problem. The exhaust gas recirculation circuit on that 1.8 cakes up with carbon, cooler, valve, and the little passages in the intake manifold. And once it's restricted, the cylinders stop getting an even share of what they're supposed to get. You'll see misfire codes. Toyota put out a service bulletin telling dealers to replace the intake manifold. Then, somewhere in the range of 130 to 200,000 miles, a lot of these cars fail head gaskets. The connection between the two is the interesting bit. The widely held explanation is that a clogged EGR circuit creates uneven combustion temperatures, hot spots form, and the gasket goes. That's mechanically plausible, and it's what most people in the trade believe. I'd stop short of calling it proven. It's the best explanation available, not a documented chain of causation, and you should hear the difference. What matters for you? The early warning is a rough shake on a cold start that clears in 10 or 15 seconds. Test drive it cold, or don't test drive it. Check the coolant reservoir. Ask when the EGR was last cleaned, and if the answer is a blank look, walk, and run the ratio, because this is the sharpest example on the list. A head gasket job runs $1,200 to $2,500. The car is worth maybe $6 or $7. One repair is 1/3 of the vehicle. That's not a bad car. A Gen 3 with a documented gasket and a clean EGR is a fine, cheap commuter. It's a bad gamble, which is a completely different thing. Worst buy number 3. The 2.4-liter 4-cylinder, the 2AZFE in a 2007 through 2011 Camry or a RAV4 from that same window. Bad piston rings. Oil goes past them and gets burned. Not a quart every 5,000 miles. Owners were adding a quart every 1 to 2,000, and the unlucky ones far more often than that. Toyota eventually acknowledged it and extended warranties, and every one of those extensions has long since run out. So the third owner pays. The failure mode isn't really the oil burning. It's that nobody checks. The car uses a quart, then 2, then it's running low, then a bearing goes, and now you have a dead engine in a car that was worth $4,000. While you're in that era, one more. The 3.5 V6 built before April 2008 has a rubber oil supply hose feeding the variable valve timing actuator. That rubber degrades from the inside, cracks, and dumps your oil in about 30 seconds. Toyota ran a service campaign across the Camry, Avalon, RAV4, Highlander, and Sienna, and the fix was a steel line. Pop the oil cap and look. You'll see either a rubber section or solid metal. If it's still rubber, that's your first repair, and it's cheap next to the engine it protects. Worst buy number 4, and this is the $10,000 car from the beginning, the Mirai. It's a hydrogen fuel cell sedan, and mechanically, it's rather lovely, smooth, quiet, well finished. The problem isn't the car. There are fewer than 60 public hydrogen stations in the entire United States, and almost all of them are in California. So if you drive it out of state, it becomes furniture, and staying in state doesn't save you either. This April, supply chain problems left roughly 60% of California's hydrogen stations with nothing to sell. A new one stickered above $50,000. Toyota sweetened it with a fuel card worth up to $15,000, which is a hell of a tell in itself. Used ones now trade around $10,000. Hundreds of owners have gone to court in California over it. The reason it's on this list isn't that it's a bad machine. It's that a $10,000 Toyota with 40,000 miles looks like the deal of the decade, and the ratio on it is infinite because the repair you need isn't a repair. It's a fuel station, and you can't buy one. Worst buy number 5, and I'll keep it short because I have less standing here than on the rest of this list, the BZ4X. I've spent far less time with electric drivetrains than with anything else I've talked about today, so take this as market observation, not shop experience. Kelley Blue Book has a 2024 example down 56% in 2 years. That's not a mechanical verdict. It's just a lot of money to hand to the first owner for nothing, and one to simply wait on. The 4th generation Tacoma, 2024 and 25. New engine, new 8-speed, and the owner reports read exactly like a first-year truck. Hesitation and gear hunting, 12-volt batteries going flat while parked, infotainment that won't boot. There's a service bulletin out there covering full transmission replacement, recalls for rear brake hoses and drive shafts. None of it is catastrophic. All of it is somebody else's problem if you buy the previous generation instead, and right now, you're being asked to pay a premium for the privilege of finding the faults. Right. The recall. You own a 2022 Tundra. You get a letter. The letter tells you your engine may contain debris that will destroy a main bearing, and that Toyota's remedy is to replace the engine. That's a serious, expensive, honorable answer to a manufacturing failure, and for a while, that's exactly what happened. More than 70,000 engines came out of trucks, and new ones went in. Now do the arithmetic that somebody inside that building did. 270,000 vehicles, 70,000 engines already built and installed. That leaves roughly 200,000 complete twin-turbo V6 engines still owed to customers, on top of every engine needed to keep building new trucks. There is no factory on Earth that absorbs that quietly, so the remedy changed. Under the current protocol, a lot of owners don't get a new engine. They get an inspection. The dealer runs software that reads the resonant frequency at the front of your crankshaft and pulls your driving data. And from that, it judges the condition of your number 1 bearing. If the software says your bearing is fine, you drive home in the same engine you arrived in, with the same debris in it, and the recall is marked complete against your VIN. Read that again, because the 2 sentences don't match. What you were told was, your engine has a defect and we will replace it. What is actually true is, your engine has a defect and we will listen to it. And if it sounds acceptable, your file gets closed. Now, I want to be fair here, because the cheap version of this argument is wrong. Toyota genuinely cannot build 200,000 engines in any reasonable time frame. And an inspection that reliably identifies the bad ones is not a dodge. It's good engineering. Screening beats blanket replacement when the screen works. The whole thing rests on those last 3 words. And the validation data for that test, how many known bad bearings it catches, how many it misses, how early it catches them, is not something you or I have seen. Toyota has explained the principle. Nobody outside has audited the performance. So here's where it lands on you. The risk didn't go away. It got transferred. It was Toyota's problem when the fix was an engine. It became your problem the moment the fix became an opinion. An opinion delivered by software at a dealership about a component nobody is going to physically look at. And your recall shows as closed, which means the next time that bearing comes up, you're not a recall claim anymore. You're a customer with a complaint. The arithmetic did that, not a villain. Nobody sat in a room and decided to hurt you. Somebody looked at the cost of 200,000 engines, looked at the cost of a software test, and made a decision that was entirely rational from where they were sitting. That's usually how it works. The number does the damage. Now let me tell you what all this is actually about, because it isn't money. The best thing a well-made car gives you is not a low cost per mile. It's that you stop thinking about it. You go out in the morning and it starts. You don't listen at the key. You don't check the temperature gauge at every light. You don't do the thing where you turn the radio down on the freeway to hear whether that noise is still there. You get in, you go, and the car takes up exactly none of your attention, and you get to spend that attention on your job, your kids, the road, anything at all. That's the real dividend on a good engine, and it's the one nobody puts in the brochure. A ladder frame main support, a chain instead of a belt, a gear set with no clutches in it. Every one of those decisions was somebody choosing, years before you existed to them, to hand you back a piece of your own head. And once you've had a car like that, you can't go back. It's not smugness. It's that you learn what the absence of low-level worry actually feels like, and you notice immediately when it's gone. So, short version, buy the 5.7 V8 in a Tundra or Sequoia, newest one you can afford, and budget for a cam tower reseal you may never need. Any Toyota hybrid on the current system, RAV4, Camry, or Highlander, with the fuel tank campaign confirmed on the 19 to 21 RAV4s. An Avalon, if you can stand it. A 5th-gen 4Runner, if you can stomach the price and the fuel bill. Avoid, or at least price accordingly, a 22 to 24 Tundra or Sequoia with a non-hybrid twin-turbo, unless the VIN comes back clean or the engine's already been replaced. A Gen 3 Prius without gasket and EGR paperwork. Any 2.4 Camry or RAV4 from the oil-burning years without a stack of receipts. A pre-April 2008 V6 that still has the rubber oil line. The Mirai at any price. And the brand new Tacoma for another couple of years. 4 checks and they cost you nothing. Run the VIN through the manufacturer's recall lookup before you drive out to see anything. 2 minutes, and it saved people 5-figure mistakes. Start the car stone cold, yourself, and listen to the first 15 seconds. Almost every failure on this list announces itself there first. Pull the dipstick before the test drive, not after. And ask for the receipt for the specific repair that model is known for. Not the service history in general, the one job. The answer to that question tells you everything about the last owner. Here's what you're buying with that half hour. Sometime around year 4, on a Tuesday, nothing happens. No call from a shop. No number you have to think about for a week before you agree to it. No conversation with somebody you love about whether it's worth fixing. Just a car that starts, and a Tuesday you spend on something else. That's the whole return, and it's bigger than it sounds. Now, I want the confession thread on this one. Not the wins. The one you regret. The car you bought that looked like the deal of the year. What went wrong, and what it actually cost you by the time you were out of it. I'll go first. I have bought a car on price and ignored a noise I heard on the test drive, and I knew what the noise was, and I paid for that education in full. Put yours down there. Somebody is about to make the exact same mistake this weekend, and your comment is the only thing that's going to stop them. And if you work on these, if you've had a V35A apart on a bench, or you're the tech running that inspection software at a dealership right now, I'd like to hear from you specifically. Tell me what I got wrong. I'd rather be corrected in public than confident in private, and the people reading the comments will be better off for it. I read every one of these, by the way. It's genuinely the part of this I look forward to. If you want more of this, subscribe, because I am nowhere near done. There's a whole category of thing I keep bumping into and haven't sat down and worked through properly yet. Repairs that used to be a Saturday and a set of hand tools and are now a booking, a diagnostic fee, and a part that has to be told who it belongs to before it works. I keep pulling on that thread and finding more of it than I expected. I'll get there. Until then, check the VIN, listen to the cold start, and don't pay Toyota money for a Toyota badge. Pay it for the engineering underneath. There's still plenty of it in there. You just have to know which side of the lot it's parked on.